Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. Nice and slow, nice and smooth. There we go.
Dude, you're smoothing it right out.
I'm
It's
working on
actually
it.
starting to become a bit of a pattern almost.
Bit of a thing, maybe. I do wanted to say, Seb, thanks for joining us again. We got Alan's going to be here in a couple of minutes. He's just setting up his computer, last I heard. And while he's setting up his computer, y'all should be setting up yours. And you should be liking the show, subscribing to it, hitting the notification bell. You get your little email in the morning saying, The Collective is speaking. Perhaps you should go listen. And then you can come listen and join us here on The Collective as we learn, build, and grow. And then, hey, now show's over. Bye. See you later.
It was going so well.
Easy peasy. Anyway, Seb, you had a thought. You had a topic. Let's hear what you got. What are you postulating today?
Yeah, so I don't know that it's a topic for an entire for an entire show, but it definitely I think needs to be touched on. Probably because I need a bit of help in just making a decision here, and so I think having your input and Shaun's input and perhaps even a few people that are watching might help in steering my decision. So give you a bit of a Reader's Digest of what's going on
over the week. Having fun.
So over the weekend, Kevin from Blue Line Syndicate was here, and we did a ton of filming, which you would definitely know if you saw me walk, because I can barely walk. And no, it wasn't that kind of filming; it was combatives.
Interesting. Do tell us more.
Combative.
It was. Right. It was actually combative.
You fought it off. It's cool.
Whatever you call it, you bastards! I had that coming. That was a giant beach ball, by the way.
Thank you.
So anyways, lots of awesome combative sequence and whatnot. But the idea behind the Poetic Savagery Project episode 7 is the duality of man and the paradox of violence, basically. And so we have this very sort of loving, compassionate person that's hanging out with his dog, doing certain things, and then there are flashbacks of controlled violence that are occurring in a non-specific context, so you can't tell what is actually occurring, but what you can tell is there are violent encounters occurring.
And is that because just so that I'm creating it in my mind's eye right now visually? So is that because visually you're up close and the violence is taking up the screen rather than you can get other images or data or whatever?
That's right. So so what you are seeing essentially is a go back in time from the person that's with the dog hanging out, being near the water and enjoying life. What you are seeing are flashbacks, but they are not flashbacks that are necessarily associated with negative emotions. Like they're not occupational stress injury or PTSD flashbacks necessarily. Right. They're just like going back in time kind of deal.
Right.
And something
almost like, does it have a random feel to it, or does it have
does.
Okay, check.
It does. And so you can tell, there's underground fighting scenes, there's a knife portion, which is obviously a very serious endeavor that nobody wants to engage in. There's a million different things that are occurring, but the idea is to have very, very quick snippets of like 1 second, 1.5 seconds of these encounters.
Nice.
Morning, winter storm. So, and so we've taken probably around 1,200 still shots. Those shots are absolutely insane, and we have them all from the morning to all the way to sunset, and some of the nicest shots I've ever seen. And Kevin has done a fantastic job post edit, right? So one of the posts that I was wanting to make was about that, exactly, the paradox of violence and the concept of controlled aggression in a mathematical way, where you have to problem solve something and there's no emotions involved in that violence directed at someone, and what people associate with violence, which is an emotional state where everybody's lost control or whatever the case may be. And so yes. And so there is obviously we all know that there are utopian views when it comes to violence. And one of those utopian views is to say that violence needs to be eradicated. And I don't disagree with that. I believe that if we could eradicate violence, I'd be the first one to be on board.
Yeah, let's get started.
Exactly. But we know it's not happening. And for as long as it's not happening, people are going to have to step up and use controlled violence to control a situation from escalating. So, I have a picture that was taken that I was wanting to use as the avatar for this post.
Okay.
The problem is the Lower Mainland has been a hotbed of stabbings, right? Like there's been an incredible rise, a meteoric rise, we should say, of stabbing and random violence, especially in the Vancouver area.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great documentary that was recently released, Vancouver is Dying, it essentially extrapolates onto why some of those issues are occurring. And those issues are a lot more a direct result of some of the woke policies that were, implemented as, within
across
the
North America.
Vancouver. Yeah, exactly. Then they are about controlling violence, controlling weapons. And so I don't need to say any more on that, but what it has led us to is a sort of a state of affairs where, people are being stabbed everywhere, and boys are confused, and they don't know how to prepare properly to defend themselves, and they're scared and they're terrified, and then they carry knives and they do certain things. So my issue was, I felt like using the shot, which is absolutely appropriate and is very, very beautiful shot, was going to contribute in a way or another in the glamorization of, knives, so to speak. And so I just wanted somebody else's opinion. Like, am I overthinking this in thinking that I have a social responsibility in necessarily not posting that picture, and perhaps using another picture, which could be, something completely different, like a sunset or whatever, and still have the same write up? Or should I just post a picture and own it and just write it in a way that's conducive to supporting the point that I'm making? And so I sent the picture to Chance, and he will show it.
Roger that. It's a good one,
right? It's a great shot, and it makes knife fighting look cool, though. Like that's the struggle.
That is the struggle. That is precisely the struggle.
Right now, this image can mean many things, but it'll only mean the thing that is supported by the verbiage. So, you could create a single line, not even a full paragraph, just a single sentence that completely squashes the idea that the glamour of violence is good. You could squash that in a single sentence with that same image. So it's a powerful image, but it's now for you to use a scalpel called words rather than a blade called a dagger.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, if we were to go the simplistic route like this, which is a good thing, not a bad thing, I would essentially say something like what we just said, like, not in those very words, but like violence, if violence could be eradicated, I'd be the first one to support it.
Right.
But it cannot. And so now we need people that have the compassion, the love, all those things, and the capacity for violence and interfering in the benefit of the collective, or something like that, right? Like, not in those very words, but like very much deeper and much more crafted, but something to that effect,
the reason I think that, here's the problem, Seb, you write so well, and you like to write long, just like me.
Yeah.
And because if you're going to do it, you want to do it fully, which means fully write about it. Now, the problem with that is not everyone can interpret it at the same level that everyone else can interpret it. So there's going to be several layers of interpretation the longer that story goes.
Gotcha.
But with a simple sentence or two, it strips out the wide-ranging opportunity for misinterpretation.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
But what it does is it spoils our journey. It spoils your opportunity to demonstrate your deeper thoughts on the subject.
For sure.
Yeah,
you're right.
And I don't know what the balance is there.
My thought on it is, it's if you don't focus on the knife, right? Like, if you're talking about the fighting, you're talking about violence, you're talking about all these things, but the thing that really draws my eye actually in this image is your face.
Yeah, for sure.
And like the exhaustion and the
I don't see exhaustion.
well, no, what I mean, I don't mean exhaust. You're right. That's not a great word for it. You can see the wear of a long day, right? You can see
I don't see that either.
I can see the veins in his muscles. I can see, like, it's not that he looks tired, but you can see he's been putting out.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's been output there. That's what I see. And I think
don't see, that's not what I see.
No, I think
here's what I see.
Okay.
2 simple words. Don't do it.
Oh, that's a good one.
Don't do it.
Oh, yeah.
That's written all over Seb's body language. It says, don't do it, man. You don't want this. That's what I see. I see decades of work saying, don't even.
Yeah, I can definitely see both of those interpretations, because I obviously decades of work means that I'm wearing it somehow, right? Like, and I am, a little bit. So, and I think I can definitely see what Shaun, and this is what I was trying to convey anyways, right? So you're right on in that assessment. The idea was to convey the don't do it type vibe. So now, so here's the deal. So we could take this picture, for example, and write up a very short write-up, as you mentioned, Shaun, and I think I agree with you. And what I'd like to hear from you is, what would that look like if you wrote it? Like, because I would love to hear what you would say to this picture. Like, what would, and actually, you know what? If you push me out something that encapsulates it exactly how it should, I'm freaking quoting you. Like, I would use it for the post if you have it.
Dude, right off the top of my head, this is what is just ripped through my head.
Yeah.
A life of violence will teach you to respect violence. Don't use it. Don't use it casually, or don't engage in violence like a hobby. That's not. I look at as I look at that, I see a guy who's been in the trenches and understands the trenches, and now wants to explain the trenches to someone else in a way that states either don't do it, or this is what I'm about. Hold on a second, I'll show you what it's about. However you want to spin it. But I see experience saying, don't take another step forward or you're going to get it. Now, with that established, the message shouldn't be, you're going to get it. It should be, nobody wants this. Nobody needs to do this. Why even step up on me? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just don't want to, the one thing I don't want to do is to make it about me, as if somehow I am the king of all violence.
No, that's right. No,
and
100%.
so it's about
it's the overarching.
That's right.
It's the theory. It's not about Seb. It's
Absolutely.
about, I know what I'm doing. So how about we just end it now, is generally the vibe that I'm trying to put across, but to the entire population. Why do we always have to step up on each other?
Yeah.
I got Alan here. Alan, what's up?
What's going on, guys?
Good, man. We're just discussing right now I guess what you said earlier, Seb, was the paradox of violence. And I'm just, do you want to paraphrase this? Do you want me to? Do you want to get
go ahead, dude.
So this shot is from a particular weekend of photos and video that Seb's been doing for his poetic savagery project. And he wanted to use this picture, for a post later, but there has been a rash of stabbings. Not a rash of stabbings. There's been I can't remember the word you used.
Yeah,
but an influx of stabbings in the Vancouver area. And to post this seems like there's a moral issue with it. But
can you zoom out a little bit as well?
I can, so absolutely.
Can get the full scope of it.
There you go.
So the idea, Alan, was that there are two things. I have paradoxical shots. So I have shots of like me in the sunset with Achilles, that kind of stuff.
You want me to put that one up? I can do that too.
Yeah, sure. Let's do that. And if I put that one, a long write-up is more likely to be read. Whereas this is going to elicit an emotional reaction. So what Shaun was saying is one sentence on this photo that encapsulate what we are trying to say, which is violence that's paradoxical, and you definitely don't want any part of it. But if you are doing it, you don't want it to be an emotional process, something to those words, right? Like, it has to be done on account of the collective protect, or whatever the case may be. So that could be like a short, one sentence associated with this shot, specifically the one with the knife. Now, if I was to write an eloquent write-up that speaks to violence and this paradoxical nature and all these other things, and go in a little bit more depth, then I would use the sunset shot, for example. Like, you want to put it up?
Yeah, sorry, I'm just working it.
Sorry.
And as you're saying that, Seb, what I think
Yeah.
it comes down to is we're almost intellectually discriminating between the difference of a visual powerful message and a written powerful message.
Agreed.
Both equally powerful, but it's the demographic that's receiving it, and it's the sender and their reputation that's sending it. And so there's some interesting moving parts in there.
Sure, there is. I'm actually legitimately conflicted. Like, it's not simple. So there's another
photo.
Oh yeah, dude. There's another. There's like 200 of those in a sunset, and they're amazing. But some of them are closer and everything, and they have a better outline. They're even better. And this is a beautiful shot. And that what I really like about, say, my social, for example, is that I consistently have about 70 to 30% men and women, right? So 70% men, 30% women in there as well. So I have a very, very demographics, people from all walks of life with different opinions, and because I'm moderated, I'm not like an extremist. And so this here would definitely, I think, get more people reading a meaningful post if I wrote a meaningful post than the other one would, because I think the other one would get sort of swiped over, like as soon as you kind of see it, a cool shot, but also there's a bunch of stuff associated with this. So let flip. So I have no idea.
I've already decided it would be a collage, and it would be a left-right collage, split right down the middle. The one image on the left, the one image on the right. There's the duality of those two images side by side. You almost don't have to say anything, but of course you need to. And I think that would be mega powerful.
Yeah, I can put that together for you in a couple of seconds. That's not hard at all. If you want me to do that, I can put it on my phone.
I'd probably get Kevin to do it, like, because he's probably has some weird process that he wants to use, so that
he's got a Harry Potter wand without a doubt.
Savage. What are your thoughts on that, Alan?
So here in the U.S., it's actually a little bit different, and because you have a culture that is so ingrained in the war type perspective, right? We've been at war for 20 years, two different countries primarily, and others as well. The ability for civilians now to be able to get these courses on how to do CQB, long range shooting, everyone can dress up like an operator. I mean, you have these guys that are the airsoft guys, almost indistinguishable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks they're an operator, but they don't have a clue what really goes into it. And when the way that things have been misconstrued here in the U.S., in my opinion, is that war is they try to
glamorize it,
not just glamorize it, but instill it in an everyday scenario.
It's everywhere.
Someone's trying to take your stuff. That's war. You have to go after them. That's not war. That's maybe someone trying to take your shit. Yeah, that's one thing. But it is the escalation of violence there. It's almost immediate to, I have to kill him.
Yeah.
There is no limit. So when I got back from like back into civilian life, the team logo that we had was Embrace Violence. And the reason why that was Embrace Violence was because we were going from a peaceful nation, generally speaking, not at war, into a war where people are legitimately going after you and trying to kill you. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have the ability to be able to choose, well, I'd rather have this, discourse with this person, and sit down and talk to them and find out. That's not the option. We don't have that. Versus in the US, that we have many more options than going right into it. The misconception that people have, and the way that's normalized here in the U.S., people are going to think as war as an analogy or a metaphor for their everyday life, and like, oh, that's acceptable, I can do that, and it glorifies it. Now, it doesn't mean that's what that picture says by any means. That's I think where it's become most problematic, is because a defense for something, defense and offense are something that people don't actually instill into any of this. Someone is peaceful their whole life and then embraces violence for the time that they need it, and then gives it up, or the action itself, and not staying violent toward everybody, is what needs to be more publicized, rather than you are a warrior 24/7 and you need to always, because this is what's being glamorized. It's being, brought up so much, and that's because it's normalized. Everyone's carrying AR-15s. Everyone's in multi-camps. Everyone's got a plate carrier. Everyone's got a freaking helmet now. Now you can get nods. So they take that, what's been normalized for war, and bring it back and feel that that is acceptable now because it's been around and been literally just brought in. And I mean, you have movies now. Well, I want to be a cool guy too. Well, you're not. If you want to be, by all means, go to selection, go do what you ever need to do to go be that cool guy. But you try to find situations in order to prove yourself that you are that capable in a civilian society, a civil society that's not at war, is what I feel is the most problematic part of that.
Dude, this was an incredibly powerful inject as far as I'm concerned. Like that was
that's just, we'll see you next Monday.
That was like my drop. See you later.
This is great. I've still got half a coffee mug. We can end it here. And I can go for a ride.
We got
Good job,
we got some we got some really great comments. So I'm gonna jump into these real quick because I think they are quite pertinent. So what do we got here? Is Winterstorm says, is a life of violence one where you have committed violence against others or trained in the application of violence and the defense against violence in protection of others? And I think that's it's a good question, first off, because a life of violence can be short and explosive and be over. But it can also be, in defense of others. You can train your whole life and never use it. But you can live a life of violence without ever having to use it. So I think that there's it's a tough one, kind of back and forth. Any thoughts on that?
No, I think that encapsulates it perfectly. I mean, it is exactly what it is very low probability, high consequence events. And if you are not prepared for them, then you're not going to interfere with the process, whether for the collective or for yourself. And so we know that. But also, I think what Alan was speaking to just now, which was so extremely powerful, is the concept of balance. This is what's forgotten right now, is and we've spoken about this before, even Shaun and I, several times, as far as the one-sided affairs of some of the, say, so quote unquote influencers or people that have a social media following or have a following altogether, to really show the one piece, the 1% of their attributes, so to speak, that were used for a specific purpose, and disregarding the rest of this stuff, which is grounded in compassion and caring for others and that kind of stuff. So that balance is absolutely critical. That is what I see.
Yeah.
Which is why I like the idea of the collage of the two images, because it's really a balanced approach to life. I mean, we should all be able to understand what violence means, but we should all be able to walk into the sunset and enjoy the warmth on our face. I mean, they're a dichotomous couple of images, but they really represent a beautiful balance of hard charging and decompressing, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. So another one, Alexandra says, you should absolutely use that image. I wouldn't sterilize your posts on account of the few who may misinterpret it. If they take the time to read your posts, they will most definitely understand that you aren't glorifying violence.
That is the key point right there.
That is the key point.
If you read it.
That's right.
But how many people will just take the image and not even bother reading what the caption is about.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we started off with make it a shorter written commentary rather than a longer written commentary. So it reduces the misinterpretive curve rate. But the fact remains that anything more than a sentence or two, and someone's already decided what that image means to them, and they're carrying on to the next image. And then, you kind of represent yourself as that flash violent guy every time, unless someone is learning a little bit more about you.
So here's a situation I'll bring to the table and let you guys decide. I was watching Instagram. There was Fieldcraft was doing a home invasion type scenario, and there was a lot of things I agreed with. A lot of things. Well, there was a couple of things I highly disagreed with, but I'll leave that out. The scenario was someone coming knocking at the door. The woman behind the door, there was someone on the catwalk that was filming. And so I don't have any packages. I don't know anyone, and they're still trying to come in. Now they're forcefully trying to come in. And they're still knocking, still trying to distract. And then someone comes from behind, opens up the door and the back door in their room and tries to assault her, and she shoots immediately. So the caption on this was the thing that stood out to me was them saying, train every day train for everyday scenarios. So let's think about the situation first.
Train for everyday scenarios?
And that's what got me. If it's an everyday scenario, okay, now we have to stop and put this down and actually kind of analyze it. The probability and possibility of, well, let's just talk about like the situation where it would happen. A home invasion like that, that's organized, and someone going in the back and someone distracting in the front, there's got to be some loot in there, right? So, and the people that actually have that loot have a higher security system. They'd be able to see that. You'd be able to see on your phone. This is like, if you don't have anything, this is what you do. But the likeliness of somebody trying to rob a home that doesn't look like it has much to take wouldn't be targeted very much. And if you have a home that actually has a lot, you'd be able to afford the security system to go along with it. I mean, I'm just throwing things out there for that.
100%.
Now, when you get ready, when you tell people this is everyday scenario, this happens all the time. I mean, the first thing I did is go on Google and started like, how many different home invasions have there been in the U.S. in the last like 3-4 years? They've been under 100 in the last 5. So I'm not saying they don't happen. And the majority of them that happen are very low income areas where it's just a quick snatch and grab, right? Yeah. Smash and grab, excuse me. So why I disagree with it being a everyday scenario. Yes, I do feel you need to be prepared, but to tell people and instill in them, it's every day. This could happen to any single person. I think it's just exaggerated and overblown, because probability and possibility of what's really going to happen is someone who doesn't train every day like they're supposed to, like they won't do it because it takes time and patience. Mm-hmm. Someone coming in the back door could be their kid, going, I heard the door knocking, mm-hmm. And the way that she responded, she was like, oh, that's great. Oh, well, that's great. That's sim rounds. But there was barely any type of like, let me see who that is. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. everyone was dressed in like, a camo jacket and black pants, so it wasn't like, a child, of course. I'm not saying it was, but it's very easy to make that mistake. And I'm talking firsthand experience. With a lot of experience, I've seen a lot of guys make that mistake because it's very difficult. It's the HR, especially, any type of DA or HR is the most difficult type of mission there is. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of like things that you have to keep out for your own guys. And in a home invasion, when there's a threat present and a person of that's trying to protect their home and others in it, it almost turns into a pseudo HR type, scenario.
Yeah, agreed.
So you have to keep those up. You can't just go for a free shoot, like shoot everything that's coming in. And when people take these weekend courses, this is where I feel like the most damage is done, because they have just enough knowledge to make themselves feel confident. And yeah, I can do this, but none of the experience to go along with it, and none of the training time to go along with it. Now, I'm not opposed, and again, I'm not opposed to the training of it, but I think that the reality should be drawn down to, you know, if you're going to do this, you need to be training every day. And I get, but that means you're an operator position, and no one's going to be doing that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more like prevention that can be going on rather than having a reaction. But
yeah,
I'll leave that on the table.
Yeah, for me, this is exactly in line with the way I teach my self-defense for women, for example, right? Like always it's situational awareness, and how do we push the potential for a violent encounter as far as we possibly can by way of maximizing and optimizing our actions that are essentially supporting a safe lifestyle, as opposed to having that reaction or that reactive thing, as you mentioned, Alan. And if you are to train somebody and you give them some wazoo technique to do in case of attack, break the glass if needed, these people don't have the inoculation, they don't have the practice, they don't have the repetition, they don't have it's a recipe for disaster. Whereas you can teach someone how to make sensible decisions, how to wait until morning to drop the garbage in the underground parkade instead of going at 9 o'clock at night, or all of those things. And you can start really, really hardening the target into how they approach their vehicles without being in their phones necessarily, and like scanning and doing this, and locking the doors immediately, whatever the case may be. So we can go on and on forever. So I 100% agree with that. There is so much context missing, and that little piece, which is the finality piece, which is maybe when push comes to shoves, there are no longer options available to me, and I have to force myself into a lethal force encounter where I have to take immediate action, is so infinitesimal in the big scheme of things that you're actually focusing on the wrong thing. Yes, it is a possibility and it may happen, but you have all this extended scenario that's way more likely to happen, and you have to be armed with the correct information so that you may make the right decisions. I couldn't agree more.
I mean, if we have the situation here in the U.S. where just two weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago, there was a 14-year-old kid that went to the door knocking, looking for his younger siblings, to take them home. He knocked on the wrong door, and then the guy came to the door, shot him through the screen door. And so the immediate response is, I feel threatened because someone's at your door. There was a lady, and this is the worst one. There was a guy, I can't say it's the worst, it's one of the worst ones. A lady, a girl, she was 22 years old. She drove into a driveway to turn around. As she's leaving, she gets shot in the head.
Oh, Jesus, man.
And I mean, but the sense of fear that's built up so much, like you got to try to understand, like, what is going on through this guy's head. Is this person's driving away? They're going to go get backup. I need to take them out now. Where does this come from?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You think it's ridiculous, but this woman lost her life.
I know.
Yeah. I do agree. It is absolutely ridiculous. The scenarios that there was a kid that dropped his ball in someone's yard, right? So they go after to get it, and the parents and the kid get shot. There's this sense of fear that's brought up to, like, oh, this is going to happen to everyone every day. Everyone, it's overwhelming to the point where everyone feels that the first response needs to be a shoot first and ask questions later.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot of it. Sorry, Shaun, you got a point? You go ahead.
I do. There are a couple of things going on as I see it. One is using the example of a weekend course where someone is supposed to learn how to do these things better, their home invasion course or whatever you want to call it. There's two things going on. One, no matter how many instructors are involved in that course for that one individual in the kitchen who's running through the scenario, there'll never be enough instructors because there isn't enough time. No one in a weekend can learn the discriminatory skills to be able to do that moment well. No one. It takes time. And so moving on from that, The greater issue that I see is, in my mind's eye, I know exactly how that course was run. Like every gong show course out there, where the course is designed to make someone feel like their 36-hour course certificate that is now hanging on their wall behind them, they're now qualified in CQB.
Mm-hmm.
Through 2 scenarios that they had to do, where both of the scenarios were set up with only one option to make the candidate successful, where as soon as they hear a noise, they just start lighting things up throughout the entire kitchen. Brrr, check. You passed the course. Congratulations. We'll see you on step 2 next weekend. And so the scenario is set up so that the successful outcome is one-dimensional. Engage. It's like a Pavlov's dog situation. You hear the bell, the end user salivates. You hear the back door open, the end user opens fire, because there's no other ability to add in nuance to a discrimination situation where the person doesn't have the discriminatory skills to work through the process in real time. We all know it's a matter of microseconds in real time that you're making all of these decisions. And you can't do that on 1 or 2 reps. And so it's a doomed training course. It's a doomed individual. It's a doomed outcome because the entire thing is set up for failure.
Seb,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Lance.
I was just going to say that it's the concept of the magic pill, right? The magic button. It's the unfortunately, tools consistently are used as fix-alls, right? Whether it be a firearm, whether it be a knife, whether it be a bat, whether it be like whatever it is, it's that level up that you don't have, right? So it allows you to step into a game that you are not prepared for, not qualified for, and have absolutely zero skill in. And I mean, I have not done the firearms training that you 3 have, but the minimum that I have done throughout my training was extensive. And I still don't think that I could make those kinds of decisions in that moment and make them effectively, just due to the fact that you don't know. You don't know. And those situations, unfortunately, they do happen, but they don't happen every day. And
so here's the weird part.
It's a rare one.
We all got handed handguns maybe when in the military. Let's say we're all 19 when we first held our first pistol, just to get the point across. And so long before we ever had a pistol in our hand, guess the other tool that we've been using for about 19 years is language. Mm. People want to go take their 36-hour CQB course and not learn anything other than bad habits versus learning how to communicate. Mm-hmm. If I had the ability to line up 100 people against a wall, all 100 people of them would have to attend the course called Communication 101 before they got to take CQB 101. Because you don't need CQB 101 in your kitchen. What you need is to learn how to communicate. And if someone comes bursting through your door with all the shotguns, with a Claymore mine literally duct taped to their chest, whatever. Someone bursts in through the back door, you don't need a weapon. If they've got a Claymore mine, all you need to do is go, whoa, what do you need? How can I help you? Are you in the right house? Are you looking for me? Do you know who I am? What's going on? Would you communicate?
Yeah. I just to be devil's advocate with the whole, just knowing Mike, and I don't know him personally, but obviously having watched extensively a lot of the stuff that he has been teaching to civilians, there's some contentions in there for sure, but generally he does a really good job of articulating what he is doing and what you wouldn't do and do. The problem doesn't change though, is the receptors, the people that are receiving the information, are not where they need to be to fully comprehend it. So for him, it might be a very simple concept to say, look, guys, this isn't something that you would do here, or this isn't something that's black and white, or whatever the case may be. What the person hears is what creates an emotional reaction, because over the course of a weekend, all that's happening is stimulus are creating these elevated stress of periods of arousal, and they're actually reacting to this. And so it really doesn't matter what you say once you start putting them through scenario-based training. But in order for you to achieve a level of proficiency, you're going to need to spend so much time in those inoculated in those stressful decision-making processes and accelerated, time compressed over time, that it's impossible to do in a weekend. And that what has the potential to create a whole bunch of issues as outlined by everybody here.
And I haven't seen the video. I haven't seen any of his videos, by the way, I don't think.
Now,
I don't follow them. So they could be good, they could be bad, they could be amazing. I don't know. But all I know is any video that touches on anything, the person who's watching it, if they've got no context or no experience or no wisdom or no whatever, that video can send a person on the right path or the wrong path. They just don't know enough to know how to absorb the information and use it. And so you can get a person who watches a video and thinks that they're now the CQB master. And the moment that they hear a bing bong in their back door, that's a moment to launch the shotgun cruise missile, because that's what they saw in a video. They just don't have the discriminatory ability to determine. So these videos that are out there can be amazing for the right people, but they can be terribly wrong for the wrong people.
Now, in all fairness, though, I'm making this whole conversation is based off the video clip that was posted. I don't know what happened before. I don't know what he was doing. Now, I do know, Mike, we're in the same company in 2007, deployed to Iraq. He is a great instructor. I'm not saying anything negative about that. It's the context and the way that he's pushing it. I think the biggest one that I was just shaking my head at was a picture of somebody holding his daughter and a shotgun or a rifle in the other hand, and you just see a back view with a burning city, like it's apocalypse.
It's always fear-based.
You know what I mean?
Always so frustrating.
That to me is the one of the big problems, is that everything is fear-based marketing, and it drives people to, you have to be ready all the time, you have to do this, and it has to be at this level, instead of teaching the self-defense courses that I teach are 90%. Everything have to do with prevention. You know, just like Seb said, stop looking at your freaking phone when you go out, because your posture's broken and you look like a victim. You look like a victim. That's the people that are going to be spotted out to actually be taken. Understanding, small little things on, like, if you're living alone, do you want to live on the first floor? No. Little things like that, or preventions, like if you're living alone, grab some 14 size boots that are used, push them in the middle of them, put them outside on your right in front of your door, porch, someone's size 14 is living there. You know what I mean?
Dude, do you want to mess with someone's head? It's a size 14 boot and a size 18 boot. I don't want
oh, Jesus, a house of giants here. Yeah. But you make a great point, Alan, is the fact that it all starts 8, 9, 10 moves before the 100%. Violent act, right? And I've said this in jiu-jitsu. I mean, I think we probably all talked about this in jiu-jitsu at some point, was the fact that we've heard the how do I get out of a rear naked choke? Well, don't get there, right? Yes. And it's a kind of a cop-out answer, but the concept is still sound in that it was 7 or 8 moves ago that you could have gotten out.
Yeah, so
now when it's locked in,
okay, so your what's options 7 or 8 moves? What's the 7 or 8 moves for the scenario where there is a city on fire, someone's holding someone with a shotgun, and everything's blowing up behind them? What's the 7 or 8 moves before that? I say it's communication.
I think so.
Well, that's part of it. That's a part of it. It's a part of it. There's a lot more that goes into it. But I agree.
What's the first one then? Step 1.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting that, because it's situationally dependent, right?
I'm not putting you on the spot, pal. I'm not saying you haven't. I don't even know what step 1 is.
No,
but
exactly.
I'm saying for everyone who's listening, maybe everyone gets a different step 1. But in absence of any step, if someone's listening to this right now thinking, what should I do? What course should I sign up for? What's my first move?
Yeah. Well,
what's the first move?
Well, if you look at the use of force in the way that it's taught generally, say to Leos and military, presence is your first level of force. So what Alan was talking about right now, as far as having the right posture and keeping your head on a swivel and looking like you are not a victim, is really your first. You have to be present to have any
situational awareness.
Yeah. So the way you portray yourself physically has a massive impact on whether or not somebody's going to take you. Because the fact is, people are bullies, and bullies do not like things that can fight back. and things that are going to give them difficulty. So they're target selective, and we know that. So most of the bulk of the protection and most of the bulk of the security work is to actually harden the target. And the more you can do that, the better it is. And so communication is definitely a part of that. But
I have a great analogy here, and you kind of touched on it there, Seb, was the fact that, bullies, yes, but I think more so than that, predators.
Yeah.
Right? A predator does not seek out the strongest prey in the herd, right?
Yep.
Does not happen. They seek out the weak, the sick, the old, the ones that are off center. They're not quite with the group. They're on by themselves, or maybe they can't keep up. Or that's what a predator looks for.
Sure.
Because that's going to be an easier hit. Now, if they're starving and they're, they have no other option, it's the only thing they can do, then sometimes they go after the strongest of the herd, but rarely. And I think that's the start of it, is the strength of presence. I really like that, and situational awareness and being understanding. Like I saw a great documentary at one point where a pack of wolves were attacking a buffalo calf, and they were kind of nipping at it and it was trying to get away, and it was screaming the whole time. And there was lots of, I was sitting there watching it going like, oh man, that calf's going to get it. That's not great. And then out of the trees came the entire herd of buffalo, and they just smashed through the wolves. The wolves scattered, but didn't leave. They just kind of stayed there. And all of the buffalo just turned and stared at them. And nobody moved until the wolves walked off. And then as a herd, they left. And I think that, again, they didn't kill any of the wolves. They didn't mangle any of them too badly. They just smashed into the area, said no. And that ended the situation. And I think that happens more often in life. There was
I don't.
Example. You don't think? Okay, well,
yeah. I mean, it might happen in nature, but it doesn't happen on the street. So
well, actually, let me jump in on that one. I don't mean to cut you off, Jace.
Shaun,
but sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. The program that I designed, it started out the way I designed it just based off a survey that was done across 18 maximum security prisons, all violent offenders. I think there was like 902 participants in this. They showed the exact same video of a security camera outside of a supermarket. I think it might have been a Walmart or something like that, in a parking lot. And they asked each individual, which person would you go after? Like, where would be your target? The most shocking thing about this is that 98% of these people picked the exact same targets. And when they asked them why, literally almost like 90% of them said the exact same answer. They look like a victim.
Weak.
Yeah.
Because their posture's broken. They're looking down. They don't look around. They're literally confined to themselves. They're not paying attention to where they're going or where they came from. They don't know what's in the car. They literally got blinders on. They have no idea what's going on. So to try to add to that one part, it's presence. Absolutely. It's how people perceive you is the very first thing before they target. And so, yes, that is absolutely, positively, we have data for that. That is a fact.
Yeah. This is no different in the Leo world, and how we're training Leos on how the little things matter when it comes to controlling situations. And a lot of that is the same empirical evidence coming from, cop killers that have spoken and said, look, I wasn't even planning on killing a cop today, but this guy was sloppy. His gun belt was hanging down. His boots were untied. There was no polish there. Everything. He's like, I'm actually not getting arrested by this guy. I'm not going to lower myself to this standard, kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's offensive.
And that decision was made before he engaged.
100% he did. Yeah. So a lot of the, and do you remember the movie The Town? Did you ever watch The Town when they're starting to their work up to try to target certain?
And it was all being controlled by the bridge, etc. Yeah. I remember it,
So then the one guy says, like, I'm not going after this guy. Like, he thinks he's a Navy SEAL. His boots are always polished. He's got like this. He's in good shape. He's got this. He's got that. He's scanning everywhere. Out. Like, immediately that target was taken out because they're like, not worth it. Maybe we could, but not worth it because there's so many that are not doing that. We're not going to risk it, right? So I couldn't agree more. That's a very, very grounded in reality and empirical concept.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some more comments here. I just want to get through these before we actually run out of time because there's some great ones here. Grayman Dad says, for your image here, let's actually get that back up here. Boom. I said, Graves, I would say if you post to be prepared for the consequences. I posted a picture on Friday and people didn't even bother reading what the post was about and got crucified for it. So
yeah, but why did you get crucified? Because, like I look at Seb and I can see people wanting to come at an image like that because of their own self-insecurities.
For sure.
Like, you ain't that hard. He is.
Yeah.
You ain't that tall. Well, he ain't. But whatever it is, their insecurity is gonna flare up, and they're gonna look at that image and try to cherry pick out something that is, whatever.
Yeah.
But it depends on who the messenger is. Of course, Seb is the messenger, and it's pretty hard to tear up Seb for inabilities or what have you.
Yeah. He does. He carries on here afterwards. He says there will be trolls and those who don't care about the message you're trying to present. All they see is a picture, and that's exactly the same. Yeah, that's exactly.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the outliers, but what I want to do is that if this is an insensitive move on my part, I don't want to do it. But I don't have an emotional investment.
I think the dichotomy of the two images is beautiful.
I really like that.
I'd pull the trigger on that all day long.
So Satch then says very simply, you could also do a carousel with the sunset picture, and the night picture, then the full write up behind it, that kind of thing. He says personally, the sunset picture is more impactful, but they're both fantastic. So it's hard to say one's better than the other. Tanya says there's no pleasing everyone. But also, perhaps adding text to the image itself will mitigate static. People who know you get it, but if this image trends, newcomers don't have the context. That's a good point, too. She carries on, Kevin took a great shot, but it's lacking context and storytelling. A collage / adding text / sequential images limits confusion about your message, may take as a visual storyteller.
And I think we're going to do that obviously in the video version of this, right? Which is where we're capturing most of this. Those are still of a much larger project in the context of and violence is a very, very tiny byproduct of the entire process to make the story that meaningful, so to speak. And so there's two things here. I'm not a big fan of multiple images simply because it leaves a stupid icon in the corner, but also people have to scroll through images, and then you've already used the image, so you're generally not using it again because you've already used it, but nobody has seen it because nobody has scrolled through. So I don't really like multiple images, but what I do like is, the suggestion that Shaun has made with the two combined. I totally like that. I dig that. And then also having perhaps something on the picture, but I see this as less of a viable option at this point. I think having the photo combined with the other one showing the paradoxical sort of relationship, I think is the way to go.
Do you know the bummer part is precisely the things that Alan has been talking about is that image represents it to me, man. Like, it's evident to anyone who knows anything that they just shouldn't step up on that. And but it's not an image that says rah rah sis boom bah, I'm the man. Just to me, it just states, relax, man, step back. I ain't into it. So there's a way, like, you could distort that image with just a couple of raise your shoulder, squint a little bit more, snarl maybe. Now you're the large and in charge warrior that everyone doesn't want to be. Or maybe some people want to be. I don't know.
Well, they want to be, but won't be.
They want to be, but won't be. Yeah.
Exactly.
But the people who are it don't want to look like that. And so I think it's a good balance, man, as long as you choose the right words.
Yeah. I do love the fact what you just brought up, Shaun, is the fact that you are extremely calm. Right? Like, you can tell you're focused, but it's just blank. It's not blank, but you know what I mean? Like, there's no emotional backing.
It's confident violence, man.
It's confident violence, exactly. Yeah. It's great. Now, Tanya, goes to your point, Alan, you just made a little bit ago, was a lack of true competency plus no skill building and critical thinking under duress plus a narrative of constant danger equals hypervigilance and tragic outcomes. 100%. And it's exactly what you were saying. And I think
so. What she said, that's what I was trying to say.
That's exactly.
I thought you did a really good job.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, it just Yeah.
I honestly, man, this is gonna sound weird, but like I literally had shivers when you went on your first diatribe because that stuff was absolute gold. No, it really was.
I still don't know why we're
100%.
talking. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know why
I
we
could have
followed
had
it
my
up.
coffee like about 30 minutes ago. We could have finished.
We could have. I guess it's me. I wanted to go the long hour and like talking to all you guys. I don't want to just end it on that.
Now,
But
the picture itself that he brought up, what I like about it, Shaun, thank you, that the shoulders being relaxed. It's a very relaxed photo. It's a very much, fuck around,
Yeah.
Hey,
but if he was
watch the
lunging
language.
or flexed, oh, sorry. If he was like in a lunging type position and kind of charging, that'd be an entirely different picture.
Entirely
or
different,
just,
yeah.
if he was clinching tight, because all those things come around and are very easily seen.
Well,
But just at your point there, the relaxed part about it is very much I'm not coming after you, but if you come after me, pack a lunch.
It's a
on.
defensive posture.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
we all see that. Like that's all evident to us as scrappers.
But it isn't going to be to
but not
else.
to everyone. And maybe that should be the story. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
You know what I do?
Yeah,
I do
like
really
that.
love the line you said earlier, Shaun, which was, "Don't do it." I think it really sums up this image so well, because that just that verbiage itself of "don't do it" is defensive in nature, right? Because I'm putting the ball in your court. Don't do it. And then it's up to you, because after that it's on, and then we'll see what happens at that point. But it's a great image, dude, and I'm like,
you could take that in a lot of different ways, but you've already got enough meat and potatoes to be able to make it happen.
Yeah,
for sure.
Now there's one last comment here I wanted to put up, and it is and the reason I want to put it up is that I think it goes to kind of what we were talking about earlier. Fear motivates when knowledge fails.
Agreed.
And I kind of agree with this, but I think it needs to be extended a little bit, in that fear motivates when instruction fails, because it's not just about having the knowledge. That you could, when you don't have the knowledge, fear will motivate, absolutely. But I think that not having the knowledge is just a lack of actual instruction.
Well, instruction has to meet reality, and the problem is the instruction can come from somebody that has the context to make sense of what's being taught. The problem is you can't teach context. You can't teach what it feels like to do certain things.
Yeah.
And so you can teach, and you can be the greatest teacher of all time. But as we know, like we've done it with our kids, right? You're trying to teach them all the things, and they will make the mistake anyways, because they need to figure out the context for themselves. And so you could be the best instructor in the world. It's going to be very, very difficult to convey the context of a professional life dedicated to controlled violence to somebody that comes in for a weekend.
That's a great point. I have a quick little story before we do any final points here, but I just want to ask you guys if you guys have ever heard the story between Sir Christopher Lee and Peter Jackson on the set of Lord of the Rings.
You're talking about where he talks about the stabbing,
yes,
and
get
the
stabbed
noise
in the back.
that it sounds like, etc.
So
I think it's a bit urban mythish. I mean, Christopher Lee never came out and straight up said, "Yeah, that's legit. That's exactly what I was saying." It's been inferred a lot.
Oh no,
What is it?
I heard an interview of, he actually said, "Oh, absolutely, this is exactly what I told him."
Oh, I know. I watched the video, but he never states, "This is the noise," because I know I've done it a bunch of times.
Yeah, he didn't say that. Okay, so
it's been inferred by the internet a boatload of times.
Okay.
Sorry, what was
so the story? It goes like this: is that in the book, Christopher Lee's character Sauron gets Sauron gets stabbed in the back by Wormtongue, right? And Peter Jackson was trying to direct Sir Christopher Lee in like how that was going to how he should react, right? He wants a big like and then like wanders off kind of thing. And Sir Christopher Lee then turns around and says, "That's not what it sounds like when somebody gets stabbed. It's more of a," and then they go quiet and they kind of fall over. And there was no actual backstory as to that, but Sir Christopher Lee was in the OSS back in World War II, and he did do some interesting missions behind enemy lines, that kind of stuff. But I think the reason I wanted to bring up that story was the concept is, you're right in that Peter Jackson could very easily say, you know, oh yeah, I have lots of experience directing movies, and this is what I want to see, and this is how it's supposed to look, and this is blah 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 blah. I can give you all the instruction in the world. Versus someone who actually has the knowledge and goes, that's not what happens. So that's my thought on it. Any thoughts on that before we shut her down?
That's a big one with no time left.
Big one with no time left. Yeah,
That opened up a whole bunch of different.
Open up a can of worms right at the end there. So
wow, great.
We'll add this in for next time, I guess, in terms of the paradox of violence. And any final thoughts? Anything on what we've been going over? Anything that's off the top of your head, Alan, before we shut her down?
No, great topics. Sorry for coming in late and
it's all good.
Slippery tongue.
Well worth it.
We'll get you trained up soon enough. Don't worry. Seb, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you very much for entertaining me. Entertaining this topic. I think it turned out to be an absolutely super insightful conversation, and I'm glad we had the right bodies to do it. Worked out quite well. Shaun, any final thoughts?
Yeah, thanks for bringing the topic, buddy, because it went in a direction that, again, I never know where it's going to go, but I'm so glad it went in several directions because, man, I learned a lot of things in this convo. So cool. Thanks.
Yeah, it really was great. I do appreciate you bringing up the info. Saves topics of mine for another day, so it works perfectly.
You did bring a topic in at the last 12 seconds, though.
I did,
so
right? The last second. I thought it was part of it. I thought it was going to be a quick little story. It wasn't. So what? Not so what. It.
You almost unleashed a Taylor.
Yeah, I'm still chomping at the bit here.
He's just ready to. Couple quick ones. Jasa says, awesome coverage on many points. Winter Storm, great info and knowledge. All. Tanya says, this is epic. Patrick, excellent episode. Everyone's happy with it. I think everybody also has learned, built, and grown. I know I have. I know you guys have. We get to do it every day, and we're going to do it tomorrow. See y'all then. Chimo.
Chimo.